All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larissa, and I am a librarian in the reference department at the Duxbury Free Library, if you've never met me before. We're here doing virtual programming live on Facebook, so we're really happy that you're here. We definitely miss you, and we're trying to make sure that we can still connect with you guys. So one of the things that we're doing is more live programming. If you missed Miss J's story time yesterday morning, it was wonderful. She's going to do it again tomorrow. That's Friday morning at 10:30. She's going to be repeating that on Tuesdays and Friday morning. So definitely catch her story time here on Facebook. And we're going to try and post more stuff to Facebook and Instagram just to stay connected with you guys. So the other thing I wanted to say is that if you have any questions or need any help with any of our services, with your library card, with your new e-card, with Libby, with Hoopla, with any of that, just reach out and let us know if you're having any trouble. You can reach us via email. You can get all our emails off of our website, duxburyfreelibrary.org, and you can definitely reach us on Facebook and Instagram. Another thing that's been coming up lately is if you can't get into one of our digital services and you don't know what your PIN is, the default PIN for all cards is OCLN. Try that. If you've changed your PIN and you can't remember what you changed it to, give us an email, get in touch with us somehow, and we'll see what we can figure out. We're just starting to be able to figure out how to do some more services from a distance. So we're still kind of figuring that out, but always reach out and let us know what you need. So, like I said, we're going to do more virtual programming, and this is Virtual Crafternoon. So one of the more popular programs in the children's room is Crafternoon. That happens on Thursdays afternoon. And we're really excited to try and get back into some of our mainstay programming. So I thought I would start off our virtual Crafternoons with one of my favorite crafts, camp summertime favorite, friendship bracelets. So one of the other things I really liked about doing a friendship bracelet craft, especially during this period of self-isolation, is that it is going to keep us connected to some of our friends, and it's a way to kind of spread a little bit of kindness and joy. And if you're stuck at home with your siblings and you're not with your friends, or if you're missing someone else from your family, it's kind of fun to be able to make something for them that you can either send to them or give to them when this self-isolation is over. So it's nice to be able to think of all of our family members and all of that and work on something that we can share later on. So today is part one, which is really just the basics and getting started. This is a great craft for anyone, probably ages 8 and up, but it's fun for kids and adults alike. And that's why I'm still doing it all these years later. We're going to talk about supplies because that is really important. So one of the best things you can have is embroidery floss. I have this nice big box of rainbow colors right here. If you don't have embroidery floss, you can use yarn or string. It's just going to be a little bit bigger, and that's fine. If you can order some embroidery floss, go for it. I was able to get some last week, and I actually disinfected it. I had a big bag, I sprayed some Lysol in it, I let it sit overnight, and it didn't affect the quality of the embroidery floss. So that was really helpful too, if you're worried about contamination and making sure you can get everything clean. You can definitely do that. And it, like I said, it didn't affect the quality. You're also going to want some scissors. Have kid-friendly scissors if you are younger, or if you're working with your kids, make sure that they aren't quite as sharp and pointy as this. You're going to want something to measure with, so a tape measure or a ruler or something like that that you can kind of keep track of. Another thing that I would recommend is a clipboard, or that's what I'm going to use today. Mine is actually taped down on my table in front of me, so in a little while I'm going to flip the phone down and you'll be able to see it, but I taped it down so it wouldn't move around when I'm making some knots. You can also use masking tape or a painter's tape on a surface. I would say to use masking tape or painter's tape just because it won't leave any adhesive behind, but that's just as good. You can also use a carabiner or a key ring or a safety pin if you're being careful, a paper clip, anything that you can hook onto. And then that way you can kind of just hold your project where you want to and get the tension really nice. And it just makes it a little bit easier to tie your knots that way. So those are the things that you're going to need. Today we're going to work with probably 3 or 4 colors, but I'll get to that in a second because the next part is always the hardest part. How much string do you need? And for some reason I always had a really hard time figuring this out when I was growing up, and I looked at a couple different places to make sure I was giving you guys the right information today. But I would say the things you have to think about is that the more colors you have, the wider it's going to be. And the wider it's going to be, the more knots you're going to make. And the more knots you make, the more string you need. So that's why I said we should really start with 3 to 4 colors today. And I think that if you're dealing with a smaller wrist, so 6 inches or less, which would probably be anybody up through adolescence, you're going to want about 50 inches of string, which sounds like a lot. But what we're going to do is we're going to take that 50 inches, we're going to fold it in half. So you're going to be dealing with 2 strings of each color, and it's going to be about 2 feet of each string, which is a lot, but as you work with it, it's going to get shorter and shorter, and it's not going to be so overwhelming to work with. The other thing is that I like to fold it in half. I like to make my friendship bracelets with a loop, and that's for a couple of different reasons. It's easier both when you're making it and later on when it's time to tie it onto your wrist. I mentioned using like a carabiner or a paper clip or something, and when you have the loop and you're making it, you can just hook it right on. You don't have to worry about losing those ends or anything, and it's just a little bit easier to work with. And then, like I said, later on when you tie it on your wrist, you can pop this right through the loop, and it just makes it a little bit easier to work with. So that's why I always like to start with a loop instead of having really long tassels at the end. I think it just makes it a little bit easier on both sides. And you can always use masking tape. If you want to have the long tassels, you can totally do that and just tape it right onto a table or your countertop. So once you have your colors picked out, it's time to get your strings cut and tied off, and then to get started. Picking colors is really hard sometimes. I know that I will look at Pinterest a lot, or if I'm working on a project for somebody else, like I mentioned before, I try to think about that person. So I have 2 projects actually that I was going to work on today that I haven't started yet, but I've already picked out and tied off, and one is for my nephew Seamus. So you can see I picked all orange colors, some yellow, some orange, and I did that because he's really obsessed with the color orange right now. I'm not going to show you this as a demo just because it's kind of hard to see between the different colors, but I am going to show you the one that I am making for my niece Maddie. So that's this one right here, and I went with blues and purples because she's a 6-year-old girl and she just loves all the colors right now. So I have a nice bright purple and a light purple, a bright blue and a light blue, and so I think this will be a little bit easier later on when I'm showing you knots because you'll be able to see the difference between each string. I'm planning other projects for other friends too. For example, I picked out a bunch of greens from my friend Kat because she really loves Ireland. If you're gonna make something for your best friend, what's their favorite color, and kind of go from there. The other thing I would mention, and I know I already said it, but stick to 3, maybe 4 colors to start with, because the more colors you have, the wider it's going to be, the longer it's going to take to go from side to side every single time. So that's kind of getting started. I will mention I have my phone turned around right now because in a little bit I'm going to turn it down so you can watch me make the knot. So I can't see any questions that you're asking, but I'll go in later and take a peek at those and try to respond if anybody has any questions. And if you need more help with this project, we're going to be back. I'm going to do it again next Thursday, which is April 2nd at 3:30, and we're going to kind of call it part 2 of Friendship Bracelets, and that's going to be slightly more advanced patterns. I'll tell you how to kind of take everything we're doing today and translate that into some of those really fancy patterns that you've probably seen online. So those are kind of the biggest things for getting started. I moved a little fast, so I hope that wasn't too overwhelming. So what I'm going to do now actually is I am going to get up. I'm going to be a little awkward for a second, pop this phone down so you can follow along and see what I'm doing as I make the knots. So hold on one second and I'm going to move this. All right, so as you can see, here is my clipboard that I'm working with, and I'm going to move this just so you can get a nice peek at it. I've got my light on, so it's nice and bright, and here is the project that I showed you before for my niece Madeline. So I'm going to just take this little loop, and I've got this clipboard taped right to my table. I'm going to tack it right in there and pull it like this. Now, the other thing you might want to think about is what order you want your colors to be in. It really doesn't matter, but I know some of you will probably be more specific about what you want. So I usually end up doing it in one specific order instead of a random order, but I think that's just because I'm a little bit more particular about stuff like that. So for Maddie, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these on one side. Oh, all my supplies are getting in the way. And I'll start over here. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start with purple. Why not start with purple? So I have this bright purple right here that you can see, and I have our blues right after that. And I'm probably just going to repeat this on the other side. So I'll start over here with the purples and the blues, just so that's a repeating pattern, because that is what we're going to see when we do more of this. So getting started, the thing you're going to want to think about the most is that you're basically doing it like you would read. So we read from left to right across the page. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a little shaky right there. We're going to move from left to right across through all of our strings right here. So we're going to take this one on the left. This is the one that we're going to work with the most right now. This is going to be our knot string, okay? And we're going to move, like I said, from left to right. So our next color is this one right here. So I'm going to push these aside just so it doesn't get in the way. And we're going to make our first knot with this string on this string. So the next thing you're going to do is, when I was young, I always learned it, or I guess I shouldn't say always learned it, but I learned it with the number 4. And for some reason that has always stuck in my head. So you're going to take your knot string, this one all the way on the left, and you're going to make a number 4. Do we see it right there? And moms and dads at home, I don't know if this will be helpful for an 8-year-old, but you can at least say make 4 and they know what you're talking about. But you're going to make your 4, and you're going to take that knot string and you're going to lay it over this next string right here. So see how I'm going over? That is where we're starting, all right? The next thing you're going to want to do in order to make your knot, and this is a really basic, simple knot. It's pretty much the only knot you're going to do the whole time you're doing any of these. You're going to reach through this loop right here. And we're going to pull your tail. This is really difficult to see, so I apologize. Underneath and through that loop, all right? So we started with our 4, and we've got this coming up through, and then you're going to pull it tight all the way up to the top, okay? With these friendship bracelets like this one that I showed you before, and I'm going to pull this out just so you can see it a little bit better. These are all double knots. So if you want to get that really nice straight down knot, you're going to do what I just did twice. So let's try it again. We've got our dark purple, and this is our knot string that I talked about. We're going to make our 4, and we're going to just reach right through that little loop and pull the tail through. So this is knot number 2 for our first string. So you can see way up there, that's our knot, all right? And we're just going to do that over and over again. So the pattern I'm working on right now is, like I said, left to right, just like you would read, and we're going to make lines. So it's basically a repeating line pattern, all right? The next thing is we're going to move on to our next string. So I'm still making knots with my dark purple, but the next string in line is this dark blue right here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make a 4 over this dark blue, and I'm going to go ahead and reach through that loop and pull our tail through. And it's not going to look super neat at first because see how all the strings are bunched up here? But after a couple rows, it's going to balance out and you're going to see lines, which will be really nice. So that was number 1, and I'm going to make it again. There's our 4. And I'm going to reach right through, and I'm going to make our second knot. So like I said, I really like doing 2 knots. It just makes it a little bit cleaner. You get those really straight knots, which makes it a little bit easier to see your pattern later on, but it's really consistent, and that's what I like about it. So the next color in line is this light blue, and we're going to do the same thing. And I know this is super repetitive, but let's make our 4, and we're going to reach right through that loop and pull our tail through. And I'm going to see if I can get this video up later on. I'm going to try and put it on Instagram too, so you guys can look at it later on if you have any questions, or if you just need to look at the diagram again, if you will. So let's make our 4. We're going to do knot number 2, pull that right through, and tight. And like I said, don't get discouraged if it's looking a little messy up here. It's going to be messy for that first row. And I'll show you on this one again. Like you can see how like that's not nice. It's all odd and messy. I'm a little out of focus. But it does balance out in the end. So now we're going to take the next half, and let's see, we did dark purple, light purple, and this is really just because I am neurotic. So let's do dark purple, dark blue, light blue. So let's keep going. I'm going to pull this right through, and we're going to make our 4 again. So there's our 4. And this is a little confusing because it is the same color. We're going to reach through and pull that tail through. You want to make sure you're always making knots with the same thread for each row. And our second knot, just like that. So it's going up there. We're going to do this all the way through. So let's make our 4, pull through, and we're going to go 1. I'm going to move a little bit faster so you guys can see what the row looks like. I want you to be able to see a full row finish so you know what you're working towards. And then we do the dark blue, which we're getting all tangled up. Let me get organized. And we're going to work on the dark blue now. So here's 1. And 2. And so you're going to see it's hard to kind of keep track of what you're working with sometimes, and that's why I like the clipboard. It kind of holds it in place for you. You got a little bit of wiggle room, and you can pull it really tight to get that nice tension. All right, so this is our last string. We've made it all the way over. So I'm going to do 2 knots right here with our 4, 1, and then make that 4 again. Pull the knot through, and number 2. So we have our first row. It probably looks really ugly, but don't get discouraged. It all kind of evens out in the end, and I'm going to try and make maybe another 2 rows just so you guys can see it. We got another about 15 minutes, and I don't want to be too boring while you're on here watching. So I'm going to go ahead, and our next color is the light purple. So we took this dark purple all the way to the end, pulled it right nice and tight, and now we're going to leave this. This becomes our new right-hand string, and we're going to move back to the left, and we're going to start over. So it really is a lot like reading a book for you kids out there that are trying to figure out how to make those cool patterns. So let's go ahead, and we're going to work with this light purple now, which looks really pink on the screen, huh? But we're going to go ahead and make our 4 and pull through, and we're going to go, 1, and I'm going to do it again, 2. All right. And I'm just going to make my way all the way across, and we're going to just go through this. And I'm probably going a little bit faster than you would go on your first try, but I want you to be able to see what it's going to look like. So we've made our way through the blues. Now we're going to do these purples again. And remember, always make your knots with 1 string until you get to the end. So we're going to do that. We're almost through. And we're going to go 1, 2. And it might feel weird to pull your strings tight like this up and down when we're thinking about our lines going across, but pulling it nice and tight like this means you get those really even knots that I showed you here that are really straight and even. And what happens when you pull it down, it's gonna straighten out anyways, and you're not gonna have to worry about your knots being all wonky because they kind of figure it out. It's like a nice weaving. So all right, we got 3 left for this row, so I'm going to go ahead and make our 4. We're going to go through, and what did I say, 1, 2. All right, last 2. I'm going to make these knots really quick. 1, 2. And once you get the hang of this, it's really simple to keep doing it. You can do it while you're watching a movie. You can do it while someone's reading you a story. If you need a little bit of quiet time, 1, and then 2. It's nice to have something kind of mindless to work on. It can be really therapeutic. Like some people like to crochet and knit while they're watching TV, but you can do this too, and this is fun for, like I said, a lot of the different ages. So you can see we've got our colors coming across pretty well right now, and you're going to get a better idea. The funny thing about this straight line pattern, though, I'm going to tell you right now, is it's going to start to feel a little like diagonal. As you make your way down, the lines are going to not look like straight across. They're going to really look more like a diagonal. But they're all going to be even, and they're all going to be nice and neat. And that's kind of what you're looking for, right? For that nice pattern. And I think Maddie's going to like this no matter what. I hope Maddie's going to like this no matter what. I'm going to try and FaceTime her and Seamus over the next couple of days, see how they're doing. I hope you guys are checking in with your friends and everybody, but this is a nice way that we can kind of keep in touch with our family and friends even when we can't be together. I saw some bloggers, they had been talking about making like little bracelet kits with like alphabet letters to send out to their friends and all that, their kids' friends, which seems like a really nice thing to do right now. And like I said, this is really great. I sprayed it with Lysol and everything worked out fine. So if you're trying to keep things, sanitized and clean, you can definitely do that. I'm sure with plastic beads, you could do the same thing. So as long as we're taking all the right precautions, I think that we're being as, safe and positive and healthy as we can. And so I like the idea of doing these kind of nice, happy projects while we're stuck inside a little bit and away from all of our friends and family. So I'm going to make that 4 again. We're going to reach through here and pull that tail through. And I like to do 2 knots, like I said, 1 and 2. All right, so you can see that these rows are starting to take shape. So trying to keep all these strings organized so you don't get all tangled up. So we're going to go 1 and 2. So like I said, this double knot is really the basic knot that you're going to use for a lot of those patterns you see. Next week, we're going to talk about doing probably this chevron shape, because you can see here's our diagonal. This is what we're doing right now. I don't think I have one that's just stripes, but this is what this bracelet is going to look like in the end. But next week, what I'll do is I'll talk about going from both sides and doing knots in different directions so that you can get these fun shapes. I'm sure you've seen some of them on Pinterest and Instagram and all those different fun patterns, and there's all sorts of patterns you can find online. So you really just need the basics to figure out how to read those patterns and then how to use them. So this one is really just the most basic thing, the one simple knot that we're going to use over and over again. And I'm going to just finish this row off. See, it's really easy to get all tangled up. 1 and 2. All right, so I'm going to just take this off so you can at least get a better look at how it starts. So see how it is? It's a little messy up there. It's a little not so nice in that dark purple row. But then they start getting a little bit cleaner as you go down. Like this blue row is nice and straight. And the more you do that, the more it will flatten out, be really nice and neat like that. And it's all the same knot over and over again, which is probably one of the greatest things about this craft, is that it's one simple movement that you have to learn and take care of. And then after that, you can apply it in so many different ways. And that's why I've always really liked this. It's one of those crafts that when the sun comes out and it starts to feel warm, I want to make these. I used to make these all summer when I was growing up. And I think it's part of the spring fever that we've got right now, is that the sun came out and it's a little bit warmer and I'm stuck inside and I'm like, what can I do with the things that I have at home? So I tend to have a lot of embroidery floss at home. And so I thought I'm going to make some bracelets. And I figured that would be a good place to start for our virtual Crafternoon program, which we used to do in the children's room, at the Duxbury Free Library at 3:30 on Thursday. So I figured, why not just do it at 3:30 here on Facebook Live? Because trying to keep things as routine as possible means that we can feel as normal as possible, especially during this time. So if you're just popping in at the end right here, we're just going over basic knots. I'm going to wrap this up in a couple minutes, and then next week we're going to do part 2 of this virtual Crafternoon friendship bracelet program. But this is all you need to know. If you're going to make your knots, you want to make a 4 right here, and you're going to pull that tail under and through, just a really simple knot. 1, 2, and then we're going to make our way across. So we're going to do that again with our 4. And I can't tell you, it's just one of those things that's stuck in my head. Somebody taught me, must have been at some kind of camp or something, and they said, make a 4. And to this day, however many decades later, I still think about number 4. So you can see I pulled up straight, but it'll be nice and flat when you move on to the next row. So you're going to take your color, there we go, all the way across, and make 2 nice knots on every string. And so hopefully you guys can get started with a project like this of your own this week and get a little practice in. It does get boring. You need to take breaks. I've had bracelets that I've been working on for a long time. I've got like 3 going right now that I started last week, just while we were getting used to this new normal of being at home and thinking about things we could do for you guys, our Duxbury Free Library family, from Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off this row really quick. 1, 2, and then on the pink string, 1, 2, and then the last for our row is this dark blue, 1, 2. And you can see these rows are starting to get flatter and more even. So that's what you're going to work on. So the basics that we talked about this week are how to make that simple knot. And like I said, I really like making a 4. I just think it's the thing that's stuck in my head, and it's really easy to remember. So you're going to make that 4 knot, and you're going to do it twice all the way across, left to right, just like you read a book. And that's going to work up pretty fast. Especially if you're just doing this simple diagonal, you're going to move all the way across. And like I said, if you have any questions, I know I said I wasn't going to be able to look at any of the questions during this live video just because of the way I had the camera turned around. But just comment and I'll get back to you. All right, we're checking our email, we're checking Facebook, we're checking Instagram. So make sure that if you need anything or have any questions or help, just reach out. And we are doing everything we can to make sure that we're still in touch. So that's about it for right now. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. We will be doing more programming like this soon, and we're really excited about it. So I'm just going to do a thing. I'm going to say goodbye, and we will talk to you soon. Elaine, I see your question. I'm going to get off this live video, and I'll respond to you right away. All right, have a nice afternoon, guys.